My ex stole all my money and vanished, so I hunted him down and took back everything the same way. He went insane in the aftermath and got himself imprisoned. When I first met Ken, he was everything I thought I needed. I was coming out of a toxic relationship, my self-esteem in tatters. Ken swooped in like a knight in shining armor, promising to take care of me, to be the man my ex could never be. He listened to me vent about my past, about the abusive ex who shattered my confidence, and he held me as I cried. He told me he'd never hurt me like that he'd always be there for me, and for a while, it seemed like he meant it. He was the perfect boyfriend. He sent me flowers at work, planned surprise dates, and even talked about our future together. We quickly became inseparable, and for an entire year, he was my rock. I thought I had finally found someone I could trust, someone I could build a life with. He made me feel safe in a way I hadn't felt in years. But that all changed overnight. One morning, I woke up to find his side of the bed empty. At first, I wasn't worried. Maybe he had an early meeting or had gone out to grab breakfast. But as the hours ticked by, I started to panic. I called him, but it went straight to voicemail. I sent texts, but they went unanswered. I tried to convince myself that there had to be a logical explanation. But when I started looking around the apartment, I knew something was terribly wrong. His things were gone. His clothes, his toiletries, everything. It was like he had vanished into thin air. I went to check on my own belongings, and that's when I noticed the first signs of betrayal. My jewelry box was open, and my watch and earrings were missing. I ran to my purse, frantically digging for my wallet, only to find it empty. The few $100s I kept from emergencies were gone. My hands were trembling as I reached for my phone to check my bank account, a sinking feeling already forming in the pit of my stomach. I prayed silently that it wasn't as bad as I feared, but the second I logged in, my heart nearly stopped. My breath hitched when my eyes landed on the balance. 0. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Every single cent of the $100,000 I had painstakingly saved over the years was gone, wiped clean as if it had never existed. He had taken everything from me, down to the last penny. The shock felt like a physical blow, a punch to the gut that left me gasping for air, struggling to breathe. It was as if the ground beneath me had vanished, leaving me suspended in a void. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could he do this? How could someone who had looked me in the eyes and said they loved me commit such an unforgivable betrayal? My whole world shattered in that instant, every piece of trust I had placed in him crushed to dust. The days that followed were a blur of disbelief and devastation. I couldn't process it. I couldn't believe that the man I thought I was going to marry had robbed me blind and vanished. The worst part was the humiliation. I had been so blind, so trusting. I felt like a fool. My friends and family had warned me about moving too fast with Ken, but I didn't listen. I was convinced he was different. But now I was alone and broke. Because I had been living beyond my means, thinking I had Ken to back me up. I couldn't make rent. Within 3 months, I was evicted from my apartment. I had nowhere to go. My car became my home. I parked in different places every night, hoping not to draw attention. I kept the few belongings I had left in the backseat, but with every passing day, I felt like I was losing more of myself. I was too ashamed to reach out for help. I couldn't bear the thought of telling my friends and family what had happened. They would only say, "I told you so." I was humiliated, broken, and felt utterly alone. Eventually, I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I had to swallow my pride and ask for help. I reached out to Kayla, my best friend from college. We had drifted apart over the years, but I knew I could trust her. When I told her what had happened, she was furious not at me, but at Ken. She insisted I move in with her. At first, I was hesitant. I didn't want to be a burden, but Kayla wouldn't take no for an answer. "You're moving in with me, end of discussion," she said. And just like that, I had a roof over my head again. Living with Kayla was a relief, but it didn't erase the anger and betrayal festering inside me. Ken had stolen more than just my money. He had taken my trust, my sense of security, and the life I had built. Every day I thought about him living his new life with my money, probably laughing at how easily he had played me. I couldn't let him get away with it. I needed to find him. I needed to make him pay. I scraped together what little money I had left and hired a private investigator. I knew it was risky. I was already in debt and hiring a PI was only going to make things worse. But I was driven by a need for justice, or maybe it was revenge. Either way, I couldn't just let it go. The investigator worked quickly. Within weeks, he tracked Ken down. He was living in another city under a different name. Seeing the photos of him living comfortably with my money made my blood boil. He looked happy, carefree, as if he hadn't just destroyed my life. It wasn't fair. He needed to pay. That's when I thought of Sarah. Sarah was the only person I knew who was ruthless enough to help me with what I had in mind. We had met in college, and while we weren't exactly friends, we understood each other in a way that only people who have a shared love of chaos can. She was manipulative, cunning, and had a knack for getting what she wanted. If anyone could help me ruin Ken, it was her. I contacted Sarah and laid out my plan. She would seduce Ken, gain his trust, and then take everything from him. Every dime, every piece of dignity he had left. I wanted to see him suffer. I wanted him to feel the same helplessness and betrayal he had inflicted on me. Sarah was intrigued. She agreed to help, but not out of the kindness of her heart. She wanted a cut of the money we would get back from Ken. I was in too deep to back out now. I agreed to her terms, and we set the plan into motion. Sarah moved to the city where Ken was living and quickly wormed her way into his life. She played the role of the perfect girlfriend, just like he had played for me. Within weeks, she had him eating out of the palm of her hand. He trusted her completely, just like I once did. Sarah was a master at manipulation. She got him to open up about everything: his fake identity, his stolen money, and his plans for the future. He was so blinded by his attraction to her that he didn't see what was coming. After a few months, she convinced him to give her access to his bank accounts under the guise of helping him manage his finances. I watched from the sidelines as Sarah executed our plan. It was satisfying to see him fall for it, to see him get a taste of his own medicine. When the time was right, we drained his accounts. Every cent he had stolen from me was now in a new account under a fake name, safely out of his reach. I thought it was over. I thought we had won. But then, Sarah did something I didn't expect. She disappeared. The night we were supposed to split the money, she blocked me on everything. I tried calling her, texting her, but it was like she had vanished into thin air. That's when I realized I had been played again. She had used me to get to Ken's money and then took off with it. I was furious. How could I have been so stupid, so blinded by my need for revenge? I had trusted her, and she had betrayed me just like Ken had. It was happening all over again. I had been used, manipulated, and left with nothing. But this time, I wasn't going to let it go. I had dirt on Sarah, and I was willing to use it. I called her one last time from a different number and gave her an ultimatum. Either she gave me my share of the money, or I would expose everything. She knew I had enough on her to ruin her life. After some resistance, she agreed to transfer my portion of the money. It wasn't the full amount, but it was something. Just when I thought it was all over, Ken found out what I had done. He was livid. He started sending me threats, saying he would ruin my life like I had ruined his. I didn't take him seriously at first. I thought he was just blowing off steam. But then strange things started happening. Packages began arriving at Kayla's apartment, things I never ordered. Debt collectors started calling about loans I hadn't taken out. It didn't take long to connect the dots. Ken was trying to destroy me, to drag me down with him, but his plan backfired. The police got involved when they traced some of the fraudulent activity back to Ken. It turned out he was involved in a lot more than just stealing my money. He had been running scams, taking out loans in other people's names, and laundering money. The investigation revealed a slew of crimes, and before I knew it, Ken was arrested. I thought I would feel satisfaction watching him get hauled off to prison, but all I felt was emptiness. I had become just as twisted as he was, consumed by revenge. In the end, I had to ask myself if it was all worth it. Was the money worth the person I had become? Looking back, I realized that I lost more than just my savings. I lost a part of myself. I let anger and betrayal turn me into someone I barely recognized. I became the kind of person who would manipulate and ruin someone's life, all in the name of getting even. And in the end, it didn't bring me the closure I was seeking. I still have a lot to work through. I'm trying to rebuild my life, to find a sense of normalcy again. Kayla has been there for me through it all, and I owe her everything. I've started to find my footing again, but it's slow going. The money Sarah gave me is enough to get back on my feet, but it doesn't fill the emptiness inside. Revenge might feel good in the moment, but it doesn't heal the wounds. It just leaves you with new scars. I wish I had walked away from the beginning, that I had let Ken go without trying to ruin him in return, but I didn't, and now I have to live with the consequences of that choice. All I can do now is try to move on, to be better, and to never let anyone else pull me into their darkness again. The only way forward is to let go of the past and focus on rebuilding, piece by piece. It won't be easy, but I'm determined to find peace and build a life that's truly my own.